Houston, Texas, 7 children vanished from the same elementary school. They were all the same age, and every disappearance happened within only 2 years. Police searched for years but found no witness, no clear suspect, and no trace of the children. 4 years later, the case was closed, just as a young detective moved to Houston with his wife and son. 3 peaceful months passed, until one afternoon, his son never came out of school. While investigating, he discovered that all 8 children shared the same unusual obsession: chemistry. The trail led him to a former chemistry teacher's abandoned house and to his son's drawing lying in the mud. Beneath the park, the detective found a hidden tunnel and a man standing beneath a yellow light at the very end. But what Daniel found beyond that light was far worse than anyone in Houston had imagined. Detective Daniel Carter moved his family to Houston, hoping to leave the most difficult years of their lives behind. Their new house was still filled with moving boxes, but for Daniel, Emily, and their son Noah, it already felt like home. While Emily unpacked old family photographs, Daniel watched his wife and son explore the beginning of their new life. Daniel also began working at a new police department, where the local officers welcomed him into the team. 3 peaceful months passed, and Houston slowly became familiar to the Carter family. One evening, they sat together at the dinner table, laughing as Noah excitedly told his parents about school. The following afternoon, Daniel arrived outside Noah's elementary school to pick him up. 10 minutes passed, the school buses left, and almost every family disappeared from the parking area. Daniel looked at his watch, then toward the closed entrance, feeling the first sign that something was wrong. He entered the school and began searching through classrooms and empty hallways. The normally cheerful building had become disturbingly quiet, and Noah was nowhere to be found. Within an hour, teachers, school employees, security staff, and police officers were searching every part of the building. Daniel stood in the center of the chaos, struggling to remain a detective, while fearing the worst as a father. He questioned a small group of Noah's classmates, showing them a photograph and carefully watching their reactions. At first, the children remembered nothing unusual about Noah's final hours at school. Then one nervous student slowly raised his hand and said he might have seen something important. Earlier that day, Noah had been seen near the side of the school, approaching an adult hidden behind the building. The witness had been too far away to see the stranger's face, but Noah had appeared curious rather than frightened. When Daniel heard this, his expression changed from exhaustion to complete professional concentration. Behind him, 2 local officers exchanged a disturbed look, as though they recognized something in the child's story. Daniel immediately brought the officers outside and demanded to know what they were hiding. The older officer reluctantly admitted that this was not the first unexplained disappearance connected to the school. 4 years earlier, 7 other children had disappeared under strangely similar circumstances. The old investigation contained 7 separate cases, but none of them had ever been solved. Before leaving, the officer advised Daniel to examine the forgotten case files stored in the police archive. That night, Daniel entered the old records room and opened the investigation that everyone else had abandoned. 7 files lay across the metal table. Outside, police officers, firefighters, and adult volunteers organized a massive search across the Houston. Inside the archive, Daniel remained alone, studying every report while an untouched cup of coffee grew cold. He later met the parents connected to one of the old cases, but years of unanswered questions had left them emotionally exhausted. Back in his home office, Daniel compared school records, activity reports, maps, and academic documents from all 7 disappearances. Among the ordinary paperwork, he began noticing subtle references to chemistry and school science activities. One document carried a science symbol, and several other records contained similar academic markings. Daniel stopped moving as the first clear connection began to form in his mind. He arranged the 7 old files beside Noah's new case, creating 8 folders in total. Every case included some connection to science fairs, chemistry clubs, laboratory worksheets, or academic competitions. Daniel finally understood that the same interest in chemistry connected all 8 children. The discovery brought back a memory from the morning before Noah disappeared. Noah had proudly shown his father a handmade science drawing decorated with red and green shapes. Daniel had smiled at the project, without realizing that it might later become the most important clue in the investigation. He immediately stood, grabbed his jacket, and drove back to the elementary school. The school was dark when Daniel arrived, with only the administrative offices still illuminated. Inside the principal's office, Daniel spread the old files across the desk and explained the chemistry connection. At first, the principal appeared confused, but then an uncomfortable memory slowly returned. He opened an old filing cabinet and searched through records belonging to former school employees. Deep inside the cabinet, he found the personnel folder of a former chemistry teacher. 7 years earlier, the teacher had worked alone in the school's science classroom after normal hours. His name was Arthur Vale, a quiet and emotionally distant man whose behavior had increasingly concerned other staff members. The principal had eventually dismissed Vail, although no confirmed crime had been discovered at the school. Daniel listened carefully as the principal described Vail's isolation and unusual professional behavior. He then compared the dismissal date with the chronology of the 7 missing child cases. The first disappearance had occurred approximately 1 year after Arthur Vale left the school. For the first time since Noah vanished, Daniel had found a person who might connect every part of the mystery. He urgently requested Vale's historical records and the last location associated with him. By early morning, Daniel was sitting inside his SUV, searching old Houston neighborhoods for anyone who remembered the former teacher. An elderly resident struggled to remember Vail, but confirmed that the man had once lived nearby. Another witness recalled seeing Vail in the neighborhood, long after local residents believed he had left Houston. A police records analyst found no recent official activity connected to Vail's old property, but an obscured historical record finally gave Daniel a physical location worth investigating. Late that afternoon, his SUV approached an old, neglected house on the outskirts of Houston. The property appeared completely abandoned, surrounded by weeds, damaged fencing, and dark, dirty windows. Daniel studied the house from outside, keeping one hand close to his belt as he searched for movement. Inside, the living room was covered in dust, old furniture, peeling wallpaper, and years of neglect. He examined the dusty floor, but no clear recent footprints or signs of occupation were visible. Believing the lead had failed, Daniel slowly walked back outside with his hope almost completely gone. He sat alone on an old bench beside the house and finally allowed himself to break down. When he lowered his hands, a small piece of red and green paper caught his attention among the wet leaves. Daniel approached the paper and stopped just before touching it, already recognizing the familiar colors. The rain-damaged drawing contained the same atom and flask that Noah had shown him that morning. Grief disappeared from Daniel's face as his professional instincts returned with sudden force. He scanned the rear of the property and noticed a narrow wooden gate standing slightly open. Beyond the fence was a neglected public park and an old path almost hidden beneath vegetation. On the muddy trail, Daniel found larger adult shoe impressions beside one faint, smaller mark. He called for police support, but entered the dark park before the responding officers reached him. For almost an hour, Daniel moved deeper into the wet forest, following a trail nearly destroyed by the rain. Police search teams eventually joined him, spreading through the trees with flashlights and maps. After 2 exhausting hours, the search had produced no clear result, and Daniel began losing hope again. Then, a professional K9 handler arrived with a trained German Shepherd. The dog examined Noah's dark green hoodie and immediately became intensely focused. With its nose close to the wet ground, the German Shepherd began following a scent trail through the forest. Suddenly, the dog accelerated, pulling the handler and Daniel deeper into the vegetation. It finally stopped beside an unnatural pile of wet leaves and calmly sat down. Daniel moved the leaves aside until his fingertips touched a cold metal surface hidden beneath the forest floor. Police officers uncovered a large industrial hatch that had been deliberately concealed beneath the vegetation. The entrance would not open, so rescue personnel brought equipment and portable lights into the park. When the heavy hatch finally rose, a narrow ladder descended into darkness beneath Houston. Daniel climbed down and entered a long underground tunnel filled with damp walls, pipes, and standing water. At the far end, he discovered a yellow-lit corridor, a familiar black and white sneaker, and a hidden room containing 8 study stations. Arthur Vale appeared at the opposite end of the corridor, but responding officers soon entered and escorted him away without resistance. By morning, Noah was safe beside his family, while Daniel explained the hidden facility and 7 unsolved cases to police beneath the wet Houston trees.